reason I chose this is because I'm very into science fiction and robots, and really like the idea of having a robot that I can control on my own, and especially one that doesn't just move like a generic robot, one that can really move around and kind of do anything I want. So yeah, I can show you. So the way it works, I have 3 servo motors, and a servo motor basically means that it can move in any direction and not just kind of a generic wheel, like folded backwards or kind of. And I'm using omnidirectional wheels that allow it to both move forward, but also has these little things on the side that can allow it to roll when it's not moving, so that I can turn one of the motors off and have it still be able to move and not be stopped by the stationary motor. The PS2 controller is wireless and connected by Bluetooth to a receiver that is hooked up to the Arduino, for which I wrote the code, connecting it to the joystick, saying that when the joystick sends a signal reading the angle of how far I push the joystick, that will transfer it to the wheels and tell the wheels how to rotate. I had many challenges with this. I went through several different ways of trying to control this. I began with the PS2 controller, but I had many issues getting it to connect. At first, the controller wasn't connecting with the receiver, and then the receivers were connecting but weren't reading to the Arduino, the microcontroller I'm using to control all this. And so then I moved on to NRF controllers, which are radio frequency transceivers, which connect wirelessly through radio waves, and those weren't working either. They would not connect to each other. Spent some time on that, then tried XBs, which are another radio frequency wireless communication device, and those I got to a transceiver which sends the data and a receiver that receives the data. The transmitter was sending the data, the receiver was receiving it but not reading it. I went back to the NRFs, and then just today I went back to the PS2 controllers after finding out that I had a faulty motor controller, and so I had to rewrite my entire code for the PS2 controller today, and only got it to work about 2 hours before this presentation. So it's very stressful. But it works now, and having to go through all of that trouble made having it work that much better. And that's kind of the best part of this. When I was in 5th grade, my school had a very small robotics course where we had robots in a kit that we put together based on the instructions, and to get the grade we had to make it do a very simple routine that required very minimal coding that couldn't even be considered coding, and it was cool, and everyone else was really excited to have their own robots, but I was very annoyed because I didn't like having to follow the instructions and just have it do this stupid routine, and everyone's doing the same routine, which bothered me even more. And so this is kind of my revenge for that, because now I have a robot that I built from scratch, not out of a box. I didn't have any instructions for this, annoyingly sometimes. And it can do whatever I want and move in any direction without any kind of constraints. And yeah, so I kind of got payback from 5th grade. Yeah.
Do the wheels speak to one another in a certain way to coordinate where they go, or are you sending separate directions to each one?
So there is some very complicated trigonometry that I don't fully understand involved in having the wheels communicate in the way I need them to for the analog joystick. But when it comes to just moving it with the pad forward, backwards, left, and right. That is very simple. All I have to do is turn on different motors at different times. But with the Volta joystick, there is some very complicated math involved in having them all work together to move in the direction I want.
And are you gonna work on this more? And
Yes, there is some code touch-ups I need to do, and I had a nice design on the top, but ended up having to put everything on top, so I'm thinking of building another layer on to kind of hide this winery mess. Yeah.
So that was written on you.
Yes, this is the original design that is kind of hidden by all this junk.
Cool.